Hey guys, Scott here. Interesting stuff. We now have a pretty good idea of how MMR works. This information was handed to me by someone named Swish, so thank you, Swish, for this. They were working with someone that is very good at data mining the stuff from the game, and we have a rough idea how a lot of this stuff actually works now. I'm not super familiar with how data mining works, so I have to say that this is not officially confirmed or anything like that. But this does look extremely legit. I've gone over the footage. I've seen the values that they're talking about, and it's actually all pretty legit stuff. So let's go over the basics of what I've learned from all this. First off, your base MMR is 1100. When you make a new account, as soon as you create that account, your MMR is 1100. That's the baseline value. And that is true no matter what. That's just always your baseline value. Now, the maximum MMR you can have is 1900. And I know that phrase is weird, maximum MMR. That's typically not how MMR systems work. There's typically no max. You just keep getting less and less points as you win more and more. But, you know, there's no actual cap. You just gain points at a slower and slower rate. So that's a weird thing. Now, there is a number of things that determine what points, who gets what, basically. But at the end of the day, it's very simple. It's mostly based on kills, escapes, and an interesting thing is the duration of the game plays a pretty significant modifier to the actual value that you get. So if you have a 4K, for example, in like a roughly 10-minute game, you will get the maximum they said was 20 points. So you will gain 20 points on the killer that you're currently playing. And game length affects the total MMR changes. I guess this is probably their way of detecting what a fair match is, because if a killer, slugs everyone for the 4K in 2 minutes, that's probably not a very fair match. And if the survivors do all the gens in 4 minutes, that's probably not a very fair match either. So in those outliers, the amount of MMR the victors get is smaller than if the match goes over. I think they said 10 minutes was the sweet spot for the maximum amount of points. So you have to take game length into account as well. The interesting thing, though, was I'll read a direct quote from the person that leaked this stuff to me. They said, chase doesn't seem to be valued. Point game was static. For example, they were all in a 4-man of all insanely good players, like players that would go on very long chases. The people that sat on gens the entire game got the exact same amount of points as the people being chased all game. It didn't seem to matter what you did during the match. All that mattered was that you escaped and how long the game was. So it treats the entire survivor team as a team, which means that people can be carried to whatever level they want because you can send out a gen, there's no skill involved, and you can just be boosted to the max rating immediately. So survivors are treated as a team. And here's the thing, though. If this is all true, which it does seem like it's true, the maximum MMR is 1900. That's not that hard to get to. And the whole point that the data miners were basically talking about was that all the people that are playing super sweaty to get to this super high level, they were probably already at it a day into this system. And there's no reason to continue doing it because you're not going anywhere. You're already at the cap. That also explains why some people at this highest level are still not that great. We basically just have the old ranking system, but it's a bit more strict, which at the end of the day, not necessarily a bad thing. I'm kind of okay with that, but it's really not an actual MMR system. It's just basically the old system with a highest rank that you can get or a highest MMR of 1900. And, that's basically it. Now, there's also a couple of other variables I want to talk about. One of the things was how much your other killers are impacted by like your highest MMR killer. The data that he showed me, they had a 1900 MMR spirit, so their spirit was maximum, and they picked a killer they have never played before a single time, which was Pinhead, and their MMR was 1700. And they also checked Trapper and Hag, and they had 1800, and they barely play those killers. So it seems like by far the most important part is your player MMR. There's a little bit of scaling and a little bit of weighting with killers, but at the end of the day, you're going to be within, 200 of your MMR no matter what. So if you're at the top MMR and you decide you want to play Nurse, you're not going to go against 1100 again. You're not back at that baseline. You're going to go against 1700, 1800. It's going to be very close to where you're currently at. And they said for almost all the matches that they actually tested, the MMRs were within about 100 of each other. There were never any really huge outliers, which was interesting to note. The final thing I want to talk about, there's a lot of cool information. I know you probably can't see the text on here. It's not super important. It's a bunch of random shit. But there's a lot of really cool just stats on here that are giving me like a good idea of what players are playing at what times and at what ranks. So it seems like there is an abundance of survivors at low rank and an abundance of killers at high rank, which you would think it would be the opposite, right? But apparently, for rank 20 games, if what he said was accurate, I don't know, you guys probably can't see it right here. This says size A and size B. Size A is the amount of killers in queue at this area, and then size B is the amount of survivors in queue in this area. This is a brand new account, 150 killers in queue, 1,200 survivors in queue. Now, they showed me their 1,900 MMR queue, and it was the complete opposite. It was about 1,200 killers in queue and like 150 survivors in queue, which is weird. But it does explain why the queue times for killer have been so ridiculously bad at higher MMR, and they're not that bad at lower MMR. So it actually lends credence to the fact that there's just, for some reason, a massive abundance of killers at the highest MMR. Whether that means it's easier to get higher MMR for killer, that might be the case. But these are still a lot of things that they're figuring out. I don't want to talk about more than what they've told me and start guessing stuff. I want this to just be pretty much concrete facts of what is going on. Obviously, there's some speculation on a couple of things, and the exact values are not quite clear. Like, the maximum is 20 points for a 4K with a long game, but what about for a 3K? Well, then it was like 14, 15, but it's hard to get the exact values, but we have a good general idea of how it works right now. And it's certainly not great. It's not a good system, but I don't know. It hasn't been that bad because it's not a very good system. I think a perfectly functional MMR system for this game would suck. And the fact that it doesn't work and is basically just the old system is probably more of a good thing than a bad thing. But I just wanted to share this with you guys. I thought this was very interesting. I learned a lot of stuff here, and I'm curious to see if Behavior confirms or denies any of this. Like I said, I cannot claim that this is official because Behavior has not said it, but this all seems extremely legitimate, and so I thought I would share it with you guys. Swish, thank you again for sharing what your data miners have found. This is all very cool stuff. But that's it, guys. As I learn more, I will be sure to share it with you. But thanks for watching. See ya.